Morning, thank you. Today we gather, as citizens have since 1868, to pay our respects, show our admiration, and demonstrate our gratitude to the men and women throughout our great country's history who died answering the call to serve in the armed forces. So I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk about Memorial Day's history and some of the great Americans that we're honoring. General John Logan signed the proclamation in 1868, making Decoration Day an official holiday with which to honor the fallen soldiers of the Civil War. Though it's still unclear where the idea for Decoration Day really came from, and towns across our country, including Pennsylvania's own Boalsburg, still claim to be the first to celebrate it, it was a noble idea and gesture meant to honor those who gave the full measure of sacrifice, fighting to preserve the ideals they believed in. Later, after World War I, the day began to honor all those who have fought and died for this country and the ideals for which it stands during its wars. In 1971, the last Monday in May was proclaimed to be Memorial Day, and today, over 150 years, countless conflicts, and periods of relative peace later, we still have men and women who answer the call, serve willingly, and allow us to go about our daily lives. As George Orwell is often attributed as saying, people sleep peacefully in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. And for a minute, I'd like to just examine two of those rough men. Stephen Hutchinson enlisted at age 19 in the United States Army and served during Vietnam. He later retired and ended up teaching psychology in several universities in California. After 9/11, though retired for several years at that point, he felt the need to go back and serve his country once more, but his wife Candy vetoed the idea. He lost his wife in 2006 to breast cancer. So he turned his grief inward and used the focus to get back into shape and was accepted for active service once again in the Army. He was deployed for a year to Afghanistan and last October deployed to Iraq. He was killed early this month on May 15th when a roadside bomb exploded near his vehicle in Basra, Iraq. He was a month shy of his 61st birthday, and that Vietnam veteran is today's oldest Iraq war casualty. Joshua Frazier was a Marine Corporal, an infantry rifleman who had completed combat deployments to Iraq with 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines. He decided to extend his contract so he could serve one more deployment with 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. He showed up to our company office a little more than a month before we were set to deploy to Iraq in 2006. He quickly became a respected young leader, both within his platoon and our company. When a squad leader's position opened up, his was the first name that came to mind. He trained and led his squad through the first 5 months of our deployment, and on February 2nd, 2007, we had the honor to promote him to sergeant with a combat meritorious promotion. I can still see the pride in his eyes as his chest was heaving when we pinned those chevrons onto his collar. 4 days later, we lost him at age 24 to a sniper. It was a loss we all felt very profoundly. At his memorial service, a squad mate of his played a video that had been taken the previous December as the squad was on some downtime. Josh and the rest were sitting around a fire, and he was talking about why he'd chosen to extend his commitment. He used words like commitment, dedication, and he talked of winning and bringing freedom to those people. Despite everything in the media, despite being on his 3rd tour in just over 3 years, Joshua believed in the same things that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have believed in and fought for throughout our country's history. His impact would continue to be felt during our last deployment in Afghanistan, as the Marines he trained in his squad were now our squad leaders and fire team leaders, and training Marines of their own. These two rough men were not without feelings, regard for human life, or the sanctity of freedom to choose one's own way. Rather, they represent the fathers and mothers, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, who fight for their country, their families, and each other. They're like many of us because they represent all of us. They're part of us, our families, and our communities, and thank God that we have them. In a day when the words hero and sacrifice are applied too loosely, Joshua Frazier and Stephen Hutchinson are just two of the newest of the thousands of American fighting men and women who have sacrificed all. Joshua is a hero to me, as are the men and women who now deployed to the front lines of our nation's conflict. On this day, every year, we pause to pay our tribute to these types of men and women. We, who because of their sacrifice and that of our fallen heroes throughout history, can exercise all of our rights. We must remember and venerate their service and sacrifice. As General Logan said in that proclamation, let no neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. As you leave this morning, remember those that have given all for us. Talk about them with your families, your neighbors, remembering their honor, courage, and commitment. Talk about the meaning of this day. So long as their memories live in us and the gift they've given us is cherished, our country will remain strong and free. Thank you for coming out to remember them this morning, and have safe travels home.